Caroline, welcome to Halloween Daily. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
I am going to enjoy it. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, this is an honor for sure because we've connected a few times over the years. We've been at a few conventions that you were at and got to meet you. And then actually 10 years ago, I interviewed you through email and we talked about some Texas Chainsaw stuff and some Rob Zombie Halloween 2 stuff at that time. And
10
and then
years.
10 years ago, it's crazy. And but we've never had the time to kind of have this one-on-one interaction. So I've been really excited and looking forward to it. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
It's a first.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we always, because we're Halloween Daily News and every day is Halloween, and we're always talking about the Halloween holiday itself. I always try to use that as an entry point. So do you celebrate Halloween, first of all, and do you look forward to the holiday like we do?
Oh, of course. I mean, I have Halloween decorations up in my house all year.
Year round. There you go.
My older son was born on Friday the 13th of October.
Oh, I love it.
So, he was sort of my Halloween pumpkin.
Yep.
In a way. It's always been, plus he's my biggest fan. He loves horror. We do the Stations of the Cross, so to speak, out here in LA. When on weekends when we go for lunch, we go to Dark Delicacies. We go to Halloween Town, Mystic Museum. We go to all the different stops in Magnolia Park that are horror oriented because it's a real location for horror in Magnolia Park. And it's one of his favorite things. He's basically seeing most of the same things all the time, but he doesn't care. So, it's great. And, obviously with conventions and parties and premieres and red carpets and things like that, there's always going to be a little bit more celebration to the holiday for people like us than people who just, they put up their decorations and they take their kids trick-or-treating and there it is. Or they go to a crazy party and get drunk. It's been a mainstay of my life. My son is 27. He's autistic, but favorite holiday by far, easily.
Oh, I love to hear that. And that is so awesome that he's your Halloween baby, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And born on Friday the 13th, too. He's also your Friday
the 13th baby as well. October.
Of October of all. Perfect, right?
It doesn't get much better than that.
And do you have fond memories, like growing up as a kid celebrating Halloween as well?
Oh, of course. I grew up in the South. And the South has very mystical, ghostly, the spirits are very alive there. And, the cemeteries are these fantastic statuaries everywhere. And, so I grew up with a healthy idea of ghosts and goblins and haunts and things like that. That was just an ordinary part of growing up in the South. They have it all over the world. The spiritual world, the spirit world, the supernatural world. It's very much a part of human psychology. So, it's always going to be there.
Absolutely. And it has been for centuries. Now, we always ask one more on Halloween, 2 more actually, because if you'll indulge us, we always ask, what's your favorite Halloween candy and your favorite Halloween costume that you've worn?
I don't have a favorite Halloween candy because I love candy. Candy girl. One of the things I fell in love with just this past October, this past Halloween holiday, was the candy covered apples. A lot of the markets out here in the LA area, they cover their apples with all variety of every kind of amazing confection. I mean, it's just, you can buy a dozen apples and not one of them has the same coating. So, and I fell in love with it because you've got, okay, the apple is healthy, but I fell in love with it this year, and I've been keeping it going all year round. So
I love it. And I love the all year round. Again, Halloween Daily. That's Halloween Daily right there every day.
I think the holiday for people like us, it's especially
Yes.
liberating because everything we love in entertainment, art, music, movies, gatherings, being with our friends. It's just and it's only once a year, and so we make the most of it. We
Yes.
absolutely. Then it's got a nice long hangover until Christmas is over, and then you start over again next year. So
That's right. That's right. I love it. Um, so I mean, you've obviously had an amazing career, and it's still you're in the height of it right now with Renfield in theaters right now. But when did you know that you wanted to go into acting? Was this something you were into very young, or how did you get into the acting?
well, gosh. I remember having sort of an epiphany. What do you want to do with your life? What would you like to be? What would you like to do? And at the time I was living in Houston, Texas, and I was still in my late teens, early 20s, well, early 20s. And there wasn't a lot of show business there, but there was some. Urban Cowboy had been shot there. Vigas Luna, a Spanish film director, had shown up with Dennis Hopper to make a movie called Freeborn. There were various movies that were beginning to happen there, and I just started looking around acting schools and things like that, agencies, stuff like that. And the world there was very, very small. And I thought if the world here is that small, there's undoubtedly a better shot than average for somebody like me.
Hmm.
And once I dove into the environment, everything just kind of took off. And, within 3 years, I was in Chainsaw 2. And that was, the stuff that I had previously done didn't have anything to do with horror. So, that was really illuminating.
And for to be so early in the career, like you said, just 3 years after kind of making this decision of, hey, this is something I want to follow and dive into, and here you are leading a movie, a
Well, no,
highly
let's not.
anticipated sequel.
What did you talking? What did you say? Sorry, I missed.
Well, I was going to say here you are leading this sequel, this highly anticipated sequel of
Oh yeah,
at the
yes,
time it was still kind of a cult classic. I think now it's just a bona fide classic. But at the time the original was this cult classic, and
oh
here you are,
yeah.
you find yourself in the lead of this sequel. Do you remember? Was the audition process difficult? Was it a big process, or was it like you said because it was in
It's
Texas and
it's the best known audition story in the world. They're auditioning 450 women from across the U.S. Toby wanted somebody from Texas. I had the chance to go to Austin and audition. I knew I had to make a strong impression. I ran screaming down the casting office hallway. I burst into the room. I pulled the chairs out from under Toby and Kit and backed into the corner saying, "They live on fear, they live on fear," because those were the only lines on the script,
yeah.
on the audition material. So, there wasn't much else to do, and that's how I got cast. And it pays to be bold. If you're an actor, it pays to be bold. It feels very scary. You don't want to take any chances, keep it small. You hear all the chat from people, and you kind of have to, if you're an actor, you have to quiet the chat sometime and go with your instinct. And you can't be afraid of making a fool of yourself. You're going to make a fool of yourself 6 ways from Sunday anyway, in one thing or another,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the nature of the job. That's the nature of being an actor. So, yeah, that's how that happened.
And so you get this role. Do you remember your first day on set?
I do. There were, I had to go in for hair and makeup tests. I had to meet Tom Savini to learn about the special effects process so I wouldn't be shocked or disturbed by anything I saw, but I still was because it's Tom Savini. But the first day at work, we were shooting the chili cook-off scene at a hotel in downtown Austin. And I make my entrance and I'm muttering to myself, the lines are about my mom, that my mother told me he's slumbering in his pride. The storyline that wasn't a part of the movie, but a part of my subtext, is that my mother had had a romantic involvement with Lefty, which inevitably leads to the kind of, wait, is he my dad? But they had a relationship with one another, and it's referred to again, I think, when we have that scene on the steps. But I'm coming into the chili cook-off, and there is LG. And I remember we went in to go do the blocking on the scene, and I walk in, and he looks up, and he's literally building the Fry House. He and props, they built. Lou wanted to be a part of that building process, so he was. And he saw me come in, and he walks over to me, and he takes my hand and he says, "Hello, darling."
That's awesome.
One of my favorite memories from any movie.
Yeah. That is awesome.
He's missed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact that that was just how you were welcomed in, such a special moment to just kind of welcome you in to the film, to the franchise.
It was just so intimate. It was a moment that only the two of us had, even though there were a bunch of people in the room. It was just the perfect way to kick off my relationship with him. And it remained that way until his death. So very lovely.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, you have worked on some of the biggest franchises in horror over the years. You've been part of iconic films over the years. But is it fair to say that this is the role that most people identify you with and want to talk to you about when you meet them at conventions and events?
It will always be that way. It will always be that way. Partly because the film's constantly finding a new audience. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1974 version that Toby directed, will always be Horror 101. It will always be one of the very first films that people see when they begin embracing horror. And it inevitably leads you to Toby's next film, which is Chainsaw 2. So she will always be the key character that I'm identified with. And one of the key characters that I'm the most like, being a Texas girl and stuff like that. I didn't have to do a lot of acting for that film. But it's also gratifying that people have been able to embrace me, and I have been able to play other parts and do a lot of fun things in television and film and stuff like that. And even a big intermediate stop in marriage and motherhood that took me out of the game for a while. I still had a fairly warm welcome when 6 years ago, I started my life over again, started my career over again. And while it's been a slow build and it's certainly involved a lot of choices, I'm finding it very rewarding. I'm finding it very, very rewarding.
That is awesome to hear. And we are, of course, thrilled to see you working more and back on screen and exciting new projects. One of the ones you did fairly recently, I mean, it's been a while now, but you worked on the anthology Tales of Halloween, and you actually star in my favorite segment of that film. I like the whole anthology, but that first segment, the Sweet Tooth segment, it's my favorite one of all the segments. And
a lot of people say that.
You have an awesome role in it. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think if you haven't seen that, to our viewers, if you haven't seen Tales of Halloween, check it out. I highly recommend it. But can you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with that project and what it was like filming that short?
Well, I've known the director, Dave Parker, for a while. He's easily one of the most gifted directors in the business. And I wish he were working more, and I wish he had more people throwing money at him, because he's really worth the investment. My part was not big, But the thing that was great about it, I got to work with Robert Russler, and I would work with Robert Russler again in Blood Feast, which is Herschel Gordon Lewis's movie. We did a remake of it several years ago. And I just had a remarkably great time with him. He's really, really a great actor, lots of power, lots of, masculine energy, which, horror does require that to an extent. You've got to have male and female protagonists that are willing to do that physical action, that are willing to go to war, that are willing to fight whatever the evil entity is, whatever it may be. So that was one of the big, big gifts of Tales of Halloween. And Tales was a great experience. Once again, at the time I was still married, doing kids and doing those sorts of things. I wasn't able to capitalize on it as much as I would have liked to. Also, it wasn't the kind of role that really, it doesn't pack a lot of punch. But it was fine. It was, I take my luck as it comes and fit myself to it. So.
Well, like I said, personally, it's my favorite segment in Tales, and I just thought you guys were just so fun, and it looked like you were having a lot of fun shooting it.
Oh, of course, always.
And spoiler, but it involves a lot of Halloween candy. So back on the candy, how much of that were you guys actually eating on set? Do you remember?
Not much.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of fake it, and because otherwise you're going to get sick.
Absolutely. And another film, it's been a few years, but kind of recent, that I want to talk about, that some of our viewers might have seen, because we actually screened it at our Halloween Film Festival a few years ago, and you won the Best Actor award for your performance in 10 Minutes to Midnight. And that's one of my favorite recent films of yours. And again, highly recommended to any of our audience that haven't seen 10 Minutes to Midnight. But if people aren't familiar, can you tell us a little bit about your character and how you got involved with that project? Because that one, I love your work in that film.
Well, it's like DJ bookends,
Yeah.
I get to play a DJ again. But the difference is this is a DJ, instead of at the beginning of her career, she's at the end of it. Yeah. And it's easily one of the best written female roles that I've ever read, that anybody has ever sent to me. It was written by Carson Blomquist, who is the brother of the director, Eric Blomquist. And the minute I read it, I was up on my feet. That's what happens when I read a script that I love. I am up on my feet. I'm walking around. I'm saying the dialogue. I'm ready to go. And with this one, the minute I began reading it, I finished it. I called Eric. I said, let's get going on wardrobe. What do you want me to wear? I also happen to have a lot of friends in the music business, and many who are metal artists. And, it's just every single element of her personality and her tastes happened to be mine. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if I could get Wednesday 13, Bury Your Dead, if I could get some really great artists on this soundtrack. But it's from the moment that Eric and I first spoke that we absolutely knew we can make this a great, great movie. And Eric had done one other film that I had seen called Long Lost, also with Nicholas Tucci. Nicholas Tucci is one of his best friends. And Nick was in Long Lost with Catherine Corcoran and Adam Wepler. And it's a remarkable film. And the thing that is the hallmark of an Eric Blomquist film and a Carson Blomquist film, the brothers, they're of one mind. They've got a mind meld. They're mega mind. They finish each other's sentences. The quality is head and shoulders above anything that you're going to read, anytime soon. A lot of people believe that they're screenwriters. It's a very special art. It's very unique. it isn't like just prose. It isn't like, and I've tried to write myself, and it's not a talent that I have. But the quality, Thomas Wen was our DP. My God, that guy has talent. Across the board, there wasn't an element of production that wasn't absolutely of the highest quality. And that will spoil you. That will spoil you rotten, you know? Before I did 10 Minutes to Midnight, I did another exceptionally high quality film that was written and directed by Graham Denman called Greenlight.
Oh
And
yes,
that's
yes.
yeah, both of these films are up on Tubi, and you can, pull them up and stream them and watch them. Once again, of the highest quality. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've only spent 25 or 50 grand on a film. I've been in movies that were 150, 200 grand, that were absolute steaming piles of dog shit
Mm-hmm.
that I wish I could take back, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't, you're stuck with it. But these filmmakers are true visionaries. They have the gift. They have the gift for being able to tell stories on film. And those are easily the two movies before Renfield and before some of the television stuff I've done. Those are the two films I'm the proudest of and have the largest, involvement in it. It's always rewarding to play a lead and go through the emotional life of the character. That's the goal. That's what you want to do as an actor, So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you
A
mentioned
lot of
Greenlight too. I'm sorry.
I said I just did a lot of talking.
No, I'm glad you brought up Greenlight as well, because that's another one that fairly recent film. Like you said, they're both on Tubi, so go check them out if you haven't already. But yeah, I loved that one. Again, I loved your work, and it really felt like, like you said, you were bringing so much to the role, and it felt like it was kind of a combination, especially in 10 minutes with the DJ character. Like you said, it's a little shades of Stretch, but it's the writing, like you said, it is so smart with that film, because I felt that on one
Yeah.
level it is a straight horror movie about some rabid bats, and there's all this going on, and a killer soundtrack. I appreciate that you were part of bringing some of that in, but on another level, that writing, it really works because it's commenting on some relevant issues. Like women of a certain age kind of getting pushed aside in certain industries and overlooked by certain authority figures, and the film really speaks to that. And I remember Sue, my wife, and I, we both watched it, and we were like, wow, this is great. And Caroline is just killing it in it, and I do think a lot of it goes to the writing, like you said. But
It's all about the writing. It's always about the story.
yeah,
It's always about the story and the writing. And one of the things I love about Carson's style, the unexpected always makes an appearance. You don't expect to find out that Amy's relationship with Bob started out in a very different way.
yeah,
The fact that I got to play a much younger character without costuming and makeup, and it was mostly Thomas Wen and his camera and his lighting schemes that managed to make that whole angle come alive. And it's and the fact that Carson chose as his story, what happens when somebody begins to become a vampire? What happens? Well, there's this mental and emotional deconstruction that begins to happen. And there are hallucinations, and there are personality changes, all kinds of things that are not always written about. Usually it's like somebody gets bitten, they become a vampire.
yeah.
There's all the space in between that Carson managed to illuminate.
Yeah, and that is part of the magic of that story, is that it is a transformation, and it is that part of the story that we don't get a lot of in the other vampire stories. Kind of just
Genuinely.
is you get a few seconds of, maybe, if they even acknowledge it. And but this was all about that in between part, like you just said. I love that. Another film I have to mention, because our audience, of course, is very familiar with. You worked on Rob Zombie's Halloween sequel, Halloween 2, released in '09, and you shared some scenes with a future Oscar winner in
I
Octavia
know.
Spencer. And we've talked to Tyler Maine, who played Michael Myers. He says that his favorite kill in that movie was killing future Oscar winner Octavia Spencer. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? You had some scenes with Octavia, and I remember when we talked in our previous interview about a decade ago, you had said that a lot of that was improv, that Rob just kind of let you guys kind of come up with a lot of your dialogue yourself.
All of it was improvised.
Okay.
What happened is I met Octavia. We hit it off like a house of fire, both Southern girls. And Rob just came over and he said, so what do you guys want to do in this scene? What? There was not a lot of scripted dialogue. It was mostly just the blocking and the situation. But we just started to play. And Rob went, okay, what I'm going to do is send you guys into a room with the guy with the video camera. Let's go with this holidays and the dog, and let's go with this stuff. And so start with Octavia, what you say, and then Caroline, you, and we'll just go with that. And that's what we did. And we just had a good time. I mean, you know, at the time, nobody knew she was going to be an Oscar winner. At the time, she had played nurses 7 movies in a row. And she was real tired of that. And, you know, a lot of the things that we talked about career-wise are the things that actors typically talk about. But I think the woman met the moment is what happened with Octavia. Her very dear friend is Tate Taylor. They went to Auburn together. And when The Help came along, he went to Octavia and said, can you do this with me? These are the people that I have lined up to be in the film. Would you do this? And she said, of course, you know, you're one of my best friends. And that movie just skyrocketed. So God bless her. I want it to rub off on me.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you've got the talent. I'm sure you're gonna get your nomination at some point.
Well, I don't know. I'm older now, so anyway.
Let's talk a little bit before we go about Renfield. We saw the movie. It's in theaters now as we're recording this interview. It's out in theaters. We saw it over the weekend. We loved it. We laughed a lot. I thought it was a hugely entertaining take on the Dracula mythology and a cool modern spin, focusing on the tortured assistant in Renfield and kind of letting him have the spotlight for the first time, which I love. I thought Nick Cage did great as Dracula. I was blown away with that. And of course, all the makeup was just outstanding. And cherry on top was getting to see you on screen in the film as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that came to be, how you got involved with that very cool project?
I had gotten acquainted with Chris McKay.
Mm-hmm.
We know some of the same people, and, you know, typical social media, online kind of stuff. And when he landed Renfield and that was about to happen, he just, you know, came to me and said, hey, I would love for you to be in the film. I didn't know it was going to be such a long process. I read for 5 different parts. I'm not going to say which ones they were. It took 5 months. Every month I read for a different role. And with every reading, you had to do Zooms with producers in studio. So it was a constant, just, you know, it was just a constant process. And it started in October. And it didn't end until February when they hired me and I got the role of Vanessa. And, you know, I had my scenes were all in the police station. Mm-hmm. And with Ben Schwartz and Aquafina and, you know, obviously I had a great time. I got to wear fabulous clothes and, it was just a fantastic time. I was there for 8 days, 4 days off for Mardi Gras. So I got a paid Mardi Gras vacation.
That's cool.
You know, and I have very strong scenes in the film. It's just, unfortunately, that storyline didn't go with the test audiences. The test audiences want to see, if you've got Nick Cage as Dracula, they want to see Nick Cage as Dracula. Let's not do all the mafia and all the other stuff. So sadly, a lot of my stuff was edited, but I will be honest, there were bigger actors than me whose roles disappeared entirely.
Yeah.
This was a tough one for a lot of actors, that can be discouraging. That can be discouraging, but I'm still very proud of my look and my attitude. I wanted to play sassy Southern lawyer. McKay said, go with it. He gave us time. The luxury of a big studio picture is you have time, and we had the luxury of time and got to play and have fun and enjoy the process. And fun story, at one point, well, number one, Ben Schwartz. Ben Schwartz is a Jewish Robin Williams. Ben Schwartz, he comes out of the interrogation room. I'm following behind him. There was never a take that was the same 2 times in a row. Not in the physical action, not in the words he said. You spin him up and you let him go, man. That is how it goes with Ben Schwartz. Charming, funny, sweet. Absolutely, the guy is the fucking best. I love Ben Schwartz. I will always love Ben Schwartz. The next time he has a live show in LA, I'm going to go. He was awesome. Second, Aquafina.
Yeah.
Very serious. So much of the movie rides on her shoulders.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of dialogue. She had a lot of stuff. And, but I will tell you, she loves to play. A scene that didn't make it in the film, I've got dialogue and I'm berating her and all kinds of stuff. And at one point I give my last line and she comes back. So I came back at her. She came back at me. I came back at her. We went off on this little riff and it was so awesome. I actually tweeted about it that night. I went back to my room and I just went, you will not believe what happened. Because it was just a moment. And later on, she kind of complimented. It didn't make it into the film, and undoubtedly, who knows? But my God, it just my heartbeat just went,
Yeah.
Because oh my God, I got to make shit up. It was so fantastic, and it was such a great. I mean, come on, yeah. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was a great experience, and I was going to ask. I was curious if there was other scenes that were shot that didn't make the theatrical cut, and it sounds like there was some stuff.
I hope that there will be some special features.
Sure.
I hope, or that I can get my footage and be able to use it, or. Yeah. But like I said, there were better actors than me that took a much bigger hit. So I'm gonna take my luck as it comes and fit myself to it. I've said that before already, but important to keep in mind.
And like you said, maybe it'll come out in the bonus content on a Blu-ray or something at some point. We can hope anyway.
Keeping fingers crossed.
And I guess some of that actually, speaks to, dealing with, like you said, a massive studio and a massive property, with Dracula being one of Universal's legendary, iconic characters that they've been dealing with for decades now. And I guess, even when you've got the director, like you said, even when the director's reached out to you and is interested in working with you, it still took all that time to get everything finalized and get through all the red tape, it sounds like. I guess that's just part of the nature of the game when you're making a Dracula movie for Universal, it sounds like.
Well, they're rolling out their monsters again. And to be honest, I would dearly love to be a part of any of their monster movies going forward. Yeah. I'm a big Universal Monsters fan. My son is a Universal Monsters fan. That was where I started falling in love with horror, Frankenstein. So, keeping fingers crossed. I would love for that to happen.
Oh, that would be amazing. We're rooting for you and can't wait to see it happen. So what other projects can you tell us about that are upcoming that we can look forward to?
Well, I'm getting a lot of interest. I'm reading for the kind of stuff that I've always wanted to
Okay.
read for. Um, I haven't landed anything yet,
Okay.
and I haven't been sent any scripts that you got at some point. I'm older now, and at some point, you do have to make some choices. I know plenty of actors who take everything that's offered, and if you're Eric Roberts, you can do that because you've got an Oscar nomination or two behind you. But for me, it would not be a good business decision to just take everything. I've done that in the
Yeah.
past. I used to take stuff that was marginal, and it's just not good.
Mhm.
It's not a choice for me. So I'm going to have to wait and see what comes down. I am reading regularly, and like I said, I'm reading for things that are really good.
Mhm.
The thing is if you're trying to level up, you're going to be competing against names that are a lot bigger.
Yeah.
It's sort of a double-edged sword, but I welcome it. I get to say great things, and I've got wonderful opportunities in front of me, and we'll see what goes down.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm
Yeah,
sure there's going to be nothing but good things coming your way.
I hope so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
And I respect and love that you are being a little bit more choosy with your roles and stuff because, like the two recent ones we talked about, Greenlight and 10 Minutes to Midnight. I mean, that's the stuff where like you said, you really were given the room to shine. And
Oh,
not that these other films you didn't kind of steal the show sometimes, but those writers and those directors really gave you that platform, and I highly recommend our audience check those out. And I'm sure that's going to lead to more.
like I said, they're two of my absolute favorite films, and
Yeah,
I one of the things that I am most grateful for is I waited for those to come along. Um, I had to wait
yeah,
because quality. Everybody wants it. I mean, I'm not the only actor who's looking to do a green light or a 10 minutes to midnight. Those are indies, they're low budget indies, but they're such high quality. You've got a ton of people who want those films, and you know, it's the luck of the draw sometimes. So
yeah.
yeah, I feel like I lucked out with those.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I can't wait to see what's next. I know it's going to be something that we're going to love, and we're going to love seeing you in it. You're going to do an amazing job. And I can't thank you enough for hanging out and chatting with us today. This has been so much fun. I could talk for another hour about a whole nother batch of films, but we'll save that for our next conversation.
And we will do it. We will do it as soon as I have any kind of announcement or some kind of
Sure.
something. We'll let you know. We'll keep you in the loop.
Awesome, awesome. That sounds good. We'll look forward to it. And yeah, you're definitely the door is open. We'll definitely have you back here anytime.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Caroline. And I always hate saying goodbye. So since every day is Halloween anyway, we're just gonna say Happy Halloween.
And to you as well.